Welcome back, everybody. Once again, I'm Stephen Colbert, and I'm joined by the four hobbits from the Lord of the Rings saga that you just saw go through a lot of stuff. Let's give a round of applause, please, for Billy Boyd, Dominic Monaghan, Sean Astin, and Elijah Wood. Hey, you guys.
Hello.
Thanks so much for being here. I know this. I think I am just as excited to talk to you as the audience is to see you talk right now. Elijah, thanks so much for reaching out to me and putting this thing together. This is really exciting. I can't wait to talk to you and the other actors and creators after the next two movies. Sean, good to see you again. My wife and I have known you for a few years now. Billy and Dom, I'm most excited to see you. You complete my collection. I have yet to ever speak to you guys. It's a long time coming. I'm super excited you're here. I want to get a question. This is a jump ball question for any of you. As we look back on the film 20 years later, how meaningful it is to audiences, how beautiful it continues to be as a work of art, as a story, as a technical achievement, the way it's changed the way films are made, and also what the audience's expectation of what is achievable in a film, especially adaptation of literature. What did you think this was going to be going into it?
I remember saying to Elijah in the we met right across from the Maison Sofitel Hotel, or in that hotel.
Right, in the lobby. In the lobby. I had just been upstairs getting my wig fit, and you were going to get yours, and we passed each other.
Yeah, and I was like, "Are you ready for this?" And you go. Elijah goes, "I'm ready." And then we get down there, and I'm like, "I'm not ready."
Interesting anecdote about that meeting too. I was 18 at the time. Sean, you were 28. We both just turned 40 and 50 respectively. Wow. How about them apples? But in answer to your question, I mean, I think what were our expectations? There was no way for us to anticipate what those films would become. I think we all just knew that we were about to embark on something significant. So meeting Sean in that lobby and him asking me that question, "Are you ready?" There was gravity to that. There was weight to that, an understanding of there being something percolating that was bigger than all of us, that we were about to be a part of. But in terms of where that would go and what that would be and what was around the next bend as far as the beginning of that adventure, we didn't know. And we'd never been to New Zealand. And I think we were all familiar with Peter Jackson's work. So from my perspective, I was like, this is Peter Jackson, who I love. I'd seen Heavenly Creatures, and I thought this is the perfect person to bring these books to life. And beyond that, didn't know what to expect.
I remember thinking in that moment, like, I'm 10 years older, and I'm supposed to have some sort of, like, I don't know, paternal role with Elijah. Like, I needed to adopt a posture of responsibility and caretaking. And, that was obliterated, like, within the first week being down there. I'm like, "Elijah, help me."
I landed with John Rhys Davies, who plays Gimli, obviously, fantastically. And we were kind of shuttled over to Stone Street the day that we landed to say hello to Pete. Ridiculously jet lagged. I'd never had that type of jet lag before. The furthest I'd ever been at that point was probably Tunisia or somewhere like that. So to be on a flight for 28 hours or something, I was just out of my mind. And Peter said to John and I, "Would you like to see Bag End?" And I said, yeah, that sounds great. So we went into the set of Bag End with the tables and the maps and the scarves hung up on the wall. And I was, having a bit of an out of body experience. And as we were finished with that, he said to us, "Now do you want to see Gandalf's Bag End?" And I was so confused. I just kind of said, "Sounds great," and just followed on behind him. We then went into a perfectly miniaturized version of Bag End, so that obviously Ian McKellen looked a lot taller, with the same scarves and the same maps and the same fireplace in the same place. Yeah. I same as Sean. I just thought, I have no idea what I'm walking into here. It felt huge,
I remember I was sort of a working actor at the time, mainly in theatre. So traveling all over, doing tours, going to London, going to south of England, going, all over Scotland. And then this job came in, and it was travel to New Zealand. So it just kind of felt like another acting job somehow. But then on the plane, I remember it was my 31st birthday when I traveled to New Zealand, and Orlando Bloom was on the plane, and he spotted me straight away and said, you look like a hobbit. And I was like, oh yeah, you must be Orlando, you look like an elf. And we got on this plane for, 30 hours or however long it takes to get to New Zealand. And we sat and we were reading the book together, and we tried to memorize the One Ring poem on the way over. And when we got to Los Angeles, it was my birthday again because of the time difference. So we opened a bottle of champagne and we drank that. And I remember when we got to New Zealand, one of the producer's assistants gave me this parcel, and I opened it, and it was this beautifully bound leather cover on the script for the fellowship. And that's when I thought, oh, wait a minute, this is something different. They didn't just hand you a script. It was beautifully bound in leather, and it had my name on the bottom. And I just thought, oh, wait a minute, this is something kind of special here,
That's one of the things that from everything that I've read about the production of the film, is that the amount of care and detail that went into every aspect of it, that everyone working on it had a sense. At a certain point, they came to this realization, oh, I can add something very special to this very love made visible for the thing that you were trying to make together. What about your relationship with the source material? Did any of you have a particular relationship to the books before you went in?
When I was growing up, I grew up in a housing estate in Glasgow. So a sort of, real working class sort of upbringing. And me and all the boys that I hung with, all we did was play soccer. That was our, football. We just played football all the time. We'd hang out at night, just play football. And one of the boys, I remember Paul Hockey was his name. And he had this book, The Hobbit. And all of us were like, what, you got a book? You're bringing a book out? And he's like, I've started reading this book. It's incredible. And for some reason, it caught on. And we all got a copy of this book, The Hobbit. And we would read it, ourselves at home before bed. We'd make you have to read one chapter or you have to read 2 chapters. And the next day we would talk about this book, about these characters. And it never happened before. And it never happened after. And why it happened, I have got no idea. But we grew up over this, couple of months, and we had this shared experience reading The Hobbit. It's weird, and it never happened again. And then I went on, as we all did, to read Lord of the Rings. But all of us agreed, well, this doesn't have Bilbo. This is Frodo. Who's this Frodo? We didn't want to read a story about this guy, and we never read it. And then when I left school, I became a bookbinder. I make books. That's what I trained to do. Really? And one of the books that I made was The Lord of the Rings.
Wow. What copy of The Lord of the Rings did you bind?
So I used to work for HarperCollins.
Oh,
yeah,
right.
yeah.
So I used to bind, it was the paperback. So we used to make the paperback, the 3-in-1.
He's looking to see if he's got it.
And we also did the separates.
Yeah, yeah.
Have you got it there?
I got a lot of different copies of The Lord of the Rings here, man. I might have it.
I used to read every book that we bound. And then hold on.
That version?
That could be one of the ones I did. If the cover's on all squinty, it's one of mine. But I used to read every book that we made, and I never read Lord of the Rings because I always felt it was too much to go into. And when I quit my job, I took the book, and that's when I first read it. I took that book with me.
I had just gotten through with my undergraduate degree at UCLA, and I had a double major, and it was history and American literature and culture. So I say that as a way of saying, like, I'm smart, I read stuff, but I'd never even heard of Lord of the Rings.
Wow.
So when I was told that Peter Jackson was adapting this like classic book, I raced to the bookstore. I got the 3-volume Alan Lee illustrated version, and I raced home. And unfortunately, I didn't read it. I wasn't reading it for enjoyment or pleasure.
Right.
I was like speed reading it to figure out what a Samwise Gamgee was.
Right.
And so as I was reading this Lord of the Rings, speed reading the Fellowship, and I started seeing that Samwise Gamgee was a gardener, I was like, that's me. That's absolutely me. Like I understand on a literary level and a like spiritual level and philosophical level, like how important it is to be a gardener. And so it's like that's the most noble character, a gardener. You know, I want to play a gardener. I know and I ended up somehow I watched the Ralph Bakshi version, and I was horrified to see how the hobbits were depicted in the Ralph Bakshi
Very
version.
roly-poly, yeah.
Oh no! Oh, Mr. Frodo, I don't know what I'm feeling about life right now. You know, and I remember going to Peter and being like, "Do we have to do it like that?" Like, I really don't. He said,
let's
"No."
talk
I was
about
like, "Woo!"
Yeah.
I want to talk about like what was your first thing that you shot, and what was your favorite day of shooting?
It's the wooded road. So just leaving Farmer Maggot's field as we get bumped into by Merry and Pippin on our way out of the Shire. We roll down the hill. So it was us finishing that roll down the hill onto the wooded road, the looking around, get off the road. Frodo senses something's amiss.
The Spielberg Jaws shot of the focus rack and beautiful.
Can I just quickly say, but that first day really set something very important for me, which was after we rolled down the hill, I said to Peter, do you know what would be really great for Pippin would be if when we landed, we were really close to a big pile of horse. And if Pippin thought, oh, that was really lucky, you know, I just liked it set him up straight away that he sees the positive in everything.
Yeah.
We fall down a hill, but because we didn't land in the that's a good thing. And Pete said, great. And he got somebody from Weta, can you make some horse?
Right.
And I thought, wow, first day that this big director on this big film would listen to an actor to do a little sort of gag. I thought, oh, wow, that sets us up so well that, you know, this is obviously a director who listens to actors and loves to create. And, you know, because his first day with the Hobbits, you would think he would just say, no, we don't have time for that, you know. Mm-hmm. But his first thought was, yeah, who can make horse, you know?
And we were filming in, I think it's called Queen's Park. I'm not sure the exact name of it.
Right. Yeah, I think you're right.
And so we were on a public hiking trail. So here we are, this like $300 million movie with, you know, the greatest effects you'll ever see in movies and this incredible cast and all this stuff. And then there's like hikers walking by, excuse me, pardon me, excuse me. And we're like in our Hobbit stuff, like trying to hide.
Who has the spider crawl down them?
Me.
How did you like that?
I love spiders. I had a nature show for 3 years, and I keep spiders in my house. I have a black widow spider right now, 2 tarantulas. So I loved it. And when I spoke to the spider wrangler afterwards, when we were done with the scene, he said, "Oh, that's great. That's fantastic because they do bite." And I said, "Oh, they do bite. You didn't feel like telling me that just before we did the scene, but we got it. It was great."
Okay, how about your favorite day to shoot?
the first time I really felt while filming this thing, it was the first time we took helicopters. It was in the South Island, kind of near Christchurch, I think, I can't remember the name of the mountain range, but we met at this farmhouse place down below, and 4 a.m, we're all getting our ears and hair and feet on and waiting, and then the helicopters were later than they thought they would be coming in. And then we all, got on these helicopters and went to the top of the mountain to shoot the post Khazad-dûm Gandalf falling down scene, where we come running out of the hills and we're now on the top of this mountain, and we're all heartbroken, and the hobbits are all crying, and it was like, when we ultimately saw that, it was Peter's birthday, and his house. We went up to his house down in Queenstown, and they showed the sequence, and all of a sudden it was like, okay, we're like a team. This is epic. Not on a, like, this is a great movie. This is the kind of movie like Lawrence of Arabia or something, where you're going to want to sit and just like.
And do you, not wanting to ruin the gravitas of what Sean Astin just said there, because that was beautiful, Sean, but do you remember that John Rhys Davies had a lazy boy Barker lounger in his contract? So when we were on the helicopter going up and got dropped off, at one point, a separate helicopter flew up a lazy boy Barker lounger for John Rhys Davies to sit on. Oh my goodness, that was hilarious.
That is a good agent. I want the name of his agent.
Brilliant.
How about you, Elijah?
The first thing that came to my mind was the rare occasion where the Fellowship was all together. So the first thing that came to mind was actually the cave troll sequence, because that was very fun to shoot. And we were it was wild technically at the time, because a lot of CG prior to that were on lock-off cameras. What was very unique about that particular sequence was that it was handheld. And so it was this very loose experience for everybody. And the fact that you were able to shoot handheld and insert a CG creature was sort of a revolutionary thing. That was really fun to shoot. But yeah, the flying in a helicopter onto a mountaintop. And the thing about that too was that we were actually grounded for 3 days. And I'd never been in a helicopter. I don't think any of us had ever been in a helicopter before. So we were super excited. Well, Sean had, of course. So we were super excited about that. But then we were stuck, and we would just hang out, biding our time. I remember that very fondly. Yeah. A lot of our memories, I think, in addition to them being about the sort of majesty of the shooting and the locations that we'd go to, it was also about the mundane, us sitting around. I think, we developed, we had a paper cup that we were tossing around at that location just because we had nothing to do. And those, the way that we would interact and sort of kill our time as friends was a huge part of that experience. And that really stands out in my mind as well.
I'm curious what your first experience was of actually seeing the film as an audience member.
I saw it at I think it was called the Adikoff Screening Room, across from William Morris in Beverly Hills. Like the least romantic, the least
least Middle Earth any place on Earth gets.
It's funny that Sean was just talking about the moment where we kind of almost explode out of Khazad-dûm and we're all, completely overwhelmed with emotion. That's kind of how I felt after I came out of Fellowship for the first time. We're in a darkened room, the credits rolled, total silence. You could see that Pete and Fran were obviously nervous and apprehensive to hear what we thought. We busted out into the daylight because we must have watched the screening at like 11 in the morning or something. And I just came out into this broad daylight, just completely flummoxed and bamboozled by what I saw. And then I think Elijah and I stood around and probably smoked 15 cigarettes in 8 minutes, and because I don't even smoke cigarettes. I was just like, can I have one of those cigarettes? Can I have one of those cigarettes? It's just very confusing,
It was overwhelming. I agree. I had the exact same feeling. It's really difficult to process when you work on something for so long, especially something like this that a large degree of it is comes to life in post. So there was things we were seeing for the first time that weren't there on the day. And, you have so many expectations of what that's going to be that it can't not be overwhelming. So it was just hard to process. I don't think I was able to really I couldn't digest it until the second time, I think.
We had all seen a great 30-minute presentation collection of scenes at the Cannes Film Festival, like 7 months earlier.
Yeah.
They were brilliant the way they managed the relationship of the movie to the public and to the media and stuff. And they put on this incredible party in the Cannes Film Festival up at this castle. And you definitely, when you saw that footage, you were like, oh my God, this is the greatest thing I've ever seen in my entire life. When I saw The Fellowship for the first time in its entirety, what would become a recurring theme for Shawnee Boy was I was totally unprepared emotionally, spiritually, psychologically. I was confused. I was frustrated. I didn't know what I was like. It was just tilt. I just couldn't handle it. Just didn't know what to do.
Well, we as an audience are certainly in the books and to a large degree in the movie, we're experiencing it through the Hobbit's experience. Like you know, Aragorn and Gandalf and Galadriel, everybody else they're too grand for a human to actually hook up their jumper cables to and go, okay, I am that person. But the Hobbits, you're just us. You're just folk, you know? Who else would you like to have played? What other characters would you like to have played in The Lord of the Rings other than yourself? It's like, oh, I would like to have been, doesn't even have to be a major player. There's some other part you would like to have done in it.
So I was talking about how much I resonated with, how much the gardener motif resonated with me as I read the books the first time, and I felt so connected to it. But I also was, I don't know, like the way the agent and Victoria Burrows, the casting director, were talking to me, all of a sudden I just got this sense like, wait a minute, are you like pigeonholing me? Are you like, is this like typecasting? Like who else could I be? Because this Aragorn guy looks like really cool. He's like got a sword and, you know, like, could I play Aragorn? And I remember them going, no, you can play Aragorn.
I mean, there's so many great characters in Tolkien, huh? I mean, the difficult thing about Peter's movies is, you know, everyone sort of nailed it. You know, the idea of playing Gollum feels amazing, but how can you after you've seen Andy's, you know? It's just so perfect. It's now in my mind that it's hard to think of playing anyone else. So it'd need to be like Tom Bombadil. I'd like to have a go at that character.
Much maligned, and I think unfairly, Tom Bombadil. I understand why he's not in the movie, but I'm a Bombadil fan. There's some good stuff in there.
Fan.
Who are you, master, says Frodo. And Tom says back, who are you? Who are you? Yourself, alone and nameless. And that goes right down my spine when I read that every time. Who are you? Yourself, alone and nameless. Which is, Tom asks this elemental question.
Wow.
Yeah, just this old being who kind of understands it. It's just beautiful, you know. And I totally understand why he's not in the movie.
Me too, yeah.
Such a beautiful character.
I'll push back on you, Stephen, a little bit there because, like, I love reading aloud. And my daughter Allie was 2 years old, 3 years old, and I would read, you know, Dr. Seuss to her and stuff. And I'd love to, you know, whenever there are poems or songs in children's books, I can sing them. I died on the doorstep of Tom Bombadil's poems and songs. I just couldn't do them. I don't know how to do them.
You can't sell the "Hey, come, merry doll, dairy doll, my darlings." You can't. bright blue's jacket is and his boots are yellow. You couldn't sell it. I thought you were an actor, man.
Come on.
Okay, how about this? You can't play. You don't want to play another. I can understand that, Billy. Like everything is sort of like perfect, like that. What's your favorite character then? Like who do you love most in
I would probably echo what Sean said about Aragorn. I mean, you know, in so many ways, in that egoic, you know, little piece of us, we all want to be the guy carrying the sword and saving the day. I mean, Vigo is such an incredible human being, and we all love him so much. There's a couple of nice, pull it out.
Oh, that's beautiful.
There's a couple of moments, one moment in The Fellowship and one moment, I think, in Two Towers, where it's just, as a movie nerd, it's those moments where you just think, what is happening there? What has he been able to do? When Aragorn says to Frodo, you know, at the top of Amon Hen, run, you go and I'm going to cause a distraction and keep you safe. And as the Uruk-hai come towards him slow-mo, it wasn't something I don't think that's in the script. Vigo takes his sword and he puts it to his forehead and he just gently closes his eyes for a second. And it seems in me as a fan, he's saying, I might die here and I'm going to say a little prayer to know that that's okay. That sends shivers down my spine. And then I think a lot of people talk about the moment in, I think, Two Towers, where he's almost died and his horse takes him back and he opens those massive double doors in slow motion and his hair's all wet. He's got blood all over his face. Now, I'm a relatively heterosexual man, but I caught some feelings at that point. I definitely.
How could you not?
Yeah, get in line.
I would say Treebeard, it was my favorite. I love the idea, the kind of environmentalism message that Tolkien was going for, the kind of anti-industrial thing, and the idea that nature can come back, can animate to defend itself. And my father, John Astin, I don't know if you ever met my dad, Stephen Gomez from the original Addams Family. He's 91 now. I'm sure he's thrilled for me to mention. And he talks like an ant. He thinks and talks like an ant. Everything is so slow and so like cumbersome. There's great wisdom in what he's saying, but it takes forever. And as kids, we would just rather jump out of a window than suffer through it anymore. But when you did, you came away from it, never, those thoughts, those ideas are with you for the rest of your life. So I would say Treebeard for me.
Gollum for me, the tragedy of Gollum, starting with Riddles in the Dark, that character captured my imagination. I think I read The Hobbit when I was 9 or 10, maybe 11. And that particular character, and then ultimately what you learn about him throughout Lord of the Rings, and the duality of that character, the tragedy of that character, the corruption of the ring as sort of an indication of what could potentially happen to Frodo or anyone else who holds the ring. It's an incredible character that I always loved when I was young. So, and then seeing it come to life, by way of what Andy brought to it is just extraordinary.
We have time for just a couple more things. So, I know this is so fun. The one is, let's talk about the character that is everywhere at all times, and that's New Zealand itself. This natural backdrop. Tolkien said, if you want to know what Middle Earth is, it is my reaction, my gratitude for the beauty of the world as it is. Like that Middle Earth is his expression of what he sees as the beauty and the gift of creation itself. That's what New Zealand's like everywhere you go, is the crazy thing. Is that every time, the feeling I had the first time I had a chance to go down there was every corner you turn around, you see a new vista and you go, oh, the world just began right there. That just came out of the sea. And geologically speaking, it sort of did. It's very young. But not only the place, but the people. What role did New Zealand itself play in the movie for you? And what was your reaction to first being there for the first time?
There was some phone interview I got to do during that time. And I said, it's as though Tolkien walked across New Zealand and then sat down and wrote this book. And they put that as the slug line in the newspaper. And I was like, woo, I nailed it. Great quote, John.
You cannot overemphasize the importance of that country in the making of the films, both in terms of our relationship to it and the indelible mark that it left in our lives, and in our hearts, like it'll be with us forever. But it's also the people, and it's the people that made this film. And it was a community of folks that only could have been them in a way. I truly have not worked with a more able and there's an attitude in New Zealand amongst film crews that's so specific to New Zealand, which is this thing of, it doesn't matter what your station is, you'll just put on the hat and go do the thing because it's required of you and because you believe in it and because we're all in this thing together. And it was such a beautiful experience in that regard. One of the runners that would pick us up in the morning, Zoe, was also a stand-in, would do anything, and everybody would sort of do anything. And that is sort of, if there's a sort of unspoken hero of the movie, or of the movies. It's all of those people banding together in a way that pushed all of us forward and made it possible. And that is very unique to that country.
An extension of that as well, if you remember, on our, must have been the first week, Pete brought in a priest or a speaker from the Maori people who blessed the production and blessed everyone involved. And I remember really vividly him saying, you know, we wish you all the best with this and we hope great success. And he said, but remember, when the film is done and you're all gone, this land will still be here. So treat the land well. And I remember that really stuck in my head, you know. And
me too. He said that it was here long before you, and it'll be here long after you're gone. So you must be a steward of the land, that kind of thing.
And there was something so Tolkien about that moment, even though it was the Maori people saying what they were saying, and it just made you think of the humanity of all of that and the humanity of this story. There's something very special about that, and that went through the whole making of the movies.
Well, that leads me to my last question, which it's about the humanity of the films, because as I said before, the hobbits really are the humans. Even like the Gondorians, you know, who are essentially Numenorians, are too grand for us. They're actually like literally like Aragorn's supposed to be like 7 feet tall or something. Like he's like they're better than we are. He's like this Apollonian ideal of a man. And of course, Gandalf is immortal, and so are the elves. You are the ones that we associate with. And one of the most beautiful aspects of the film to me is, and the four men I'm looking at right now express so beautifully in their performances, is it's about your love for each other. You love each other deeply and truly, warts and all, maybe especially because of each other's warts, thinking of the amount of ways that Merry and Pippin pick on each other. But I think that's one of the reasons why this story is not relegated to like, well, it's a fantasy story, is that it's a true human story. And I wanted to just end here with you guys talking a little bit about the relationships between these two characters and what you think, what that means to you and what you think that means to the audience, because ultimately this is a love story to me.
Well, I mean, I'll talk very briefly about just our personal relationships. I mean, I've never worked on a film before or since that certainly had such an extended period of time with the same people, but something magical happened, and we've quizzed Peter Jackson and Philippa and Fran about it over the years in terms of the shrewdness of the casting. Because just think for a moment, if there were one member of the Fellowship who really was kind of unpleasant to work with and showed up late and was a drama queen and we didn't like them, it would have caused such an awful fracture throughout this jamboree of folks that went off on this adventure together. We shared, you know, not only crazy hours at work together. Hobbits would generally get picked up at 5:10 in the morning. We'd be the first in, the last out. We'd be driving home at 7:30 at night. On the way home, we'd say, should we grab a quick bite? You want to get dinner? So we'd have dinner that night until 9 or 10. And then very often I would stay at Elijah's place or stay at Billy's house if we're watching a late night movie. We learned to surf together. We bungee jumped together. We went through breakups with girlfriends together. We moved around the country together. I think Peter and his crew very much knew that if we get the right combination together, these guys are going to bond and want to keep each other safe off camera, and it's going to dictate so strongly on camera. When we were away from each other in The Two Towers and Return of the King, I felt those pangs of like, I've not seen Elijah or Sean forever, and they're going up Mount Doom, and I've not seen Billy, and he's in trouble on this battle plane, So it really became life imitating art. So that's what I'll say about that.
There's so many people who would come up to us during and after, and for 20 years now, say who are like, are you guys really that close in real life? What is that feeling like? We love each other. We love each other. We like, the only thing I can liken it to is what I hear veterans talk about who've been to war together. Mm-hmm. That there's like, it's sort of hard to describe to other people in a way that makes sense, because some of it is like the guys are saying, there's some mundane quality, but not when you accumulate it over time, and not when it's that intensity, and when the ideas are so reinforcing of of those bonds, and the expectation is that you should be close, and it is real. I promise anyone who's curious or wondering, it's real. You know, you can have faith in something in the world, that the love that the people, that the hobbits have for each other is real love. It just is.
I love that notion too, that it is ultimately about love, Stephen, that you said. Like, what I think one of the most lovely aspects of the movie, post it coming out and post our time in it, is by extension, it is a ripple of love. So often when we meet people who love the movies, fans, their collective experiences are all shared experiences of connection and love, which is such a beautiful thing, that this thing that we made, that we all got to be a part of and shared in our love of each other, that then was expressing the sort of inner love of the storytelling, is then by extension sort of this ripple effect of new people all the time discovering these characters and their own connection to it, and also their own connection to each other as a result, which I think is such a beautiful thing.
Yeah, what do we most want to be? Not alone. And there's this beautiful community of people who can love this film together. This film ultimately about love. Speaking about making it real, I will end on one last one. Some of these questions that they've been from fans online in anticipation of this. And I'll end on this one. Billy, this one's for you. Talk about making things real. Oh, I'm sure you get asked about second breakfast all the time. Have you made that real in your life? Because I think it's an excellent idea.
It's such a huge thing from the movies. I probably get asked something about second breakfast probably every day. So, and I love it. It's such a wonderful, and if I can very quickly just tell you that scene, I was looking forward to that scene because it sort of sets the hobbits up, you know, and we worked hard as someone who loves the books as much as you do. You know how much you want it to work. You want Tolkien's world to work, and everybody felt like that. And I thought that stuff about, it's just so normal for the hobbits. Second breakfast, 11. Well, it's, if we're going to go on this adventure, we have to get the rules, and and it started snowing that day when we were filming it. And Pete was like, we have to just shoot it anyway because we're off somewhere else the next day or whatever. And it felt so rushed, and I was so deflated. It was like one take, if you guys remember. We did one take, and then they had to get us out of there before, you know, they couldn't get the cars out, they couldn't get the planes out. And I was so disappointed. I was like, oh, I thought this was going to be close-ups and tons of coverage, and it just, and for some reason, it sticks in people's heads. And second breakfast is such a huge thing. And I do try and have second breakfast most days.
Well, Billy, I was on the west side of LA yesterday to do a COVID test for work. And I dropped in on Billy. Billy and his wife and his son have become kind of a bubble for me. And I finished off an apple in the car. And then you made us all coffee. So we kind of had second breakfast yesterday. I mean, come on.
Well, fellas, thank you so much. This has been such a treat for me, and I hope for the audience who's watching this right now. Elijah, again, thanks for reaching out about doing these after the films. It's been such a joy, not only to talk to you today, but obviously this is a chance for me to say thank you for the work that you did back then and the care and the love you gave to the story and made it not only beautiful and exciting and wonderful performances, but managed to give new life, new images to this world without replacing the ones in my head from a child when I read it. It's an addition, it's not a replacement. And that's an incredibly rare thing to achieve. So thank you for that. And I just want to say to everybody watching, that's a wrap on the first of our 3 conversations with the cast of the Lord of the Rings trilogy. I want to thank Billy, Dom, Sean, and Elijah. Thank you to everyone watching from theaters all around the world. And importantly, everyone working at those theaters who are doing everything possible to give you a safe and comfortable experience. Please join me at the very same theater for The Two Towers and a conversation with Cate Blanchett, Orlando Bloom, Viggo Mortensen, and Liv Tyler, followed by The Return of the King with Andy Serkis, Ian McKellen, and Peter Jackson. What a treat, you guys.
Wonderful.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much.